Is there nothing Trudeau won't do for China? Even at the show trial of the two Michaels just this month, Trudeau refused to send our ambassador to China to the trial. A dozen other countries sent their diplomats to the trial as a sign of solidarity with us, but our own ambassador just didn't go. He didn't go. He sent some junior underling, mustn't get off side with China. And the grossest of all was then when the opposition conservatives put a motion condemning China's genocide of the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang province. Trudeau refused to show up to vote. He wouldn't vote for it or against it. He didn't even show up. All he did was send the Marc Garneau to say we abstain, but the whole cabinet just hid. What a coward. It's almost like Trudeau meant what he said when he told us that he loves China's basic dictatorship.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime.
But that wasn't good enough for China, and they've started turning on Canada. Well, they did years ago. They put sanctions on our agricultural exports, for example, but now they've started putting sanctions on individual Canadian MPs and other officials. So Canada has responded in the most modest way possible. Sanctions against minor Chinese officials. Trudeau says he won't allow goods made by slave labor by Uyghurs into Canada, but the Globe and Mail shows that ban's just not happening. No goods have been stopped at all. It's fake. But China is outraged nonetheless, and they've lost emotional self-control, which is odd for a country that values saving face. But I'm not sure, was this deliberate or was this a rogue diplomat trying to impress his bosses in Beijing? I don't know, but look at this. Just look at this tweet. Boy, your greatest achievement is to have ruined the friendly relations between China and Canada and have turned Canada into a running dog of the U.S. Spendthrift. You don't really hear some of that language a lot. A capitalist running dog. That's weird Cold War era communist language, sort of Stalinist language. But look at the pure derision, the mocking, the diminishment of him, calling him a boy. You don't see that a lot from diplomats. It's not very diplomatic, is it? Now, this diplomat, Li Yang, or I think it might be said Yang Li, he's based in Brazil. So it's a bit odd in some ways for him to be weighing in on Canada, unless they just wanted a diplomat who couldn't be kicked out of Canada to do that. Not that Trudeau would ever kick him out. So what have we here? We have Trudeau, who hasn't actually done anything to China. We haven't withdrawn our diplomats or kicked out any of theirs. We haven't cut off their trade, even though they've cut off ours. We haven't kicked out any of the 100,000 privileged sons and daughters of the Chinese Communist Party who are studying in our universities, taking out places that Canadians might take, keeping out, we don't keep out Chinese goods dumped in our market like cheap Chinese steel. We haven't kept out China's Huawei from our 5G. We're still in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. We're putting our money into building infrastructure in China. We haven't even thought of boycotting China's upcoming Olympics. None of that, just a fake ban on Xinjiang cotton. But you know what? I have to agree with this communist diplomat from Brazil. Let's look at that tweet just one more time. Boy, your greatest achievement is to have ruined the friendly relations between China and Canada and have turned Canada into a running dog of the U.S. Spendthrift, that last part is quite true, isn't it? You know what? I think this little commie is right. I think he's rude and undiplomatic, but by gosh, there's some truth under it. I think that if Trudeau really does manage to unhook Canada and China, if he really does start to push China away from us, the dictatorship, untangle us from their companies, if he really did that, which he has not yet done, and frankly, it doesn't look like he's going to do, it really would be Trudeau's greatest achievement. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.